Okay, we are now coming live. Okay. Speak of you. No, that's wrong. Okay, that should work now. Hi there, sorry anyone who's on Facebook Live, lovely to see you all. This is something that has really been on my mind a lot over the last few weeks with the changing situation. We know obviously that everybody's Seder this year is going to be looking very different than it would normally. But I think this year I'm particularly very mindful, and as I'm sure a lot of you are, that there are a lot of people who are going to be having their Seder on their own. And this talk is really for you. It's also for people who are having a lot smaller Seder than they would normally, but I think that's obviously most of us. But I would specifically like to really vocalise the challenge that people are going to have this year for having their Seder on their own. And hopefully also to be able to come up with some ideas of how to be able to best manage this. Sorry, just 1 second. I just realised that I don't know how to record this. Sorry everyone on Facebook. Record. Okay, sorry. So again, so this is specifically, we're talking to people who are on their own for Seder this year, where they normally wouldn't be. I know for us that normally one of the loveliest parts of our Seder is the fact that we get to have a lot of different people coming to our Seder, and some of those Sedarim are people who are otherwise on their own, and it really adds so much to our Seder to be able to have a real mix of different people come to our Seder. But this year, none of us are able to be with each other. We are in spirit, but not physically. And today I really want to address this idea of having a solo Seder, or a Seder where there's really a lot fewer people than you would be imagining. So I have shared in the Zoom class, if anyone wants to join us on Zoom. And I'm going to see if I can also share now on Facebook. Yeah, these are just some resources that I might be pointing towards as I speak. So just things that you can think about and hopefully click on afterwards. You don't have to look at them now with me, but if you want to, you can. The first idea that I wanted to share with you is actually an idea I heard from Rabbi Malcolm Herman from Seed yesterday. I was listening to a class that he was part of a panel, and one of the things that he was talking about is the idea of Seder, and he quoted somebody called Rabbi Lopiansky, who's one of the leading rabbinical authorities, up and coming kind of people, advice, and people to talk to. And what he said is the idea this year, Pesach 2020 is different than anything we've ever seen before, and please God, anything that we'll ever seen again. The idea this year that there's no such thing as shul anymore at the moment. We can't access a shul. We cannot access our community other than virtually, right? We're all on Facebook and Zoom and Skype and every other method of trying to connect to people, but we can't actually connect with people literally in person. So he said, this year more than ever, it's actually a time for us to think about our own relationship with God, our own relationship with Hashem. And like any relationship, it has its ups and downs. And I think that Seder night, and particularly this year, we're talking about 3 days. So we're talking about 72 hours of, being not with our family. Normally would be a lovely Yom Tov atmosphere, being on our own, for someone to be on their own without the technology, without being in contact with people. That's something that we really need to be thoughtful of how to best approach this. In order to help me prepare for this class, I actually did quite a lot of research trying to find what different people are saying and different inspiration and different ideas about how to approach this solo Seder. Now, in terms of actually how to run the Seder itself, there's loads of great resources out there. We're going to be sharing our own with the community. That's not very different in terms of whether you're 1, 2 or 100, as we've had at our communal Seders in the past. The way that you can do a simple Seder is going to be the same if you're doing it for the first time for a group of 6 of you or 2 of you or 1 of you. That's not the part that I'm going to focus on today, but we will be having a chance to run through the actual Seder via our community communications, and if not, there's loads of stuff that you can Google as well. But what I'm going to share with you is actually this idea of a solo Seder, and the ideas, most of the ideas that I'm sharing with you is from a webinar that I listened to by 2 people called Mark Fine and Dusty Fruchter. One I think is in Israel, one I believe is in America, both of whom ran a joint webinar, and they've been working on different documents. I've shared with you some of them in the comments. And they're both people who are going to, I believe, be having a solo Seder this year. And what was very interesting was Dusty began by talking about the idea of a scrambled egg Seder. And she spoke about the idea that this year, if you really are feeling like that, you can have a scrambled egg Seder, read through the Haggadah really quickly, have some matzah, drink your wine, and that will be it. And I think that part of what we need to do in order to kind of come to terms and best know how to tackle the idea of a solo Seder is actually much more than that. The first step really that I think we need to do is we need to understand that it's okay to grieve, it's okay to let go of this year, how we would want it to be. I think it's really important actually for each of us to have a chance to talk about that it's really difficult this year. Now, whether you choose to discuss that with the people that you would normally be with for your Seder, whether you choose to talk that with a friend, a family member, whether you'd like to discuss that with any of us in the rabbinic team or the wider shul community, please reach out to someone and talk about it, because we can't pretend that that's not there. It's important to be able to acknowledge that this is what I'm really going to miss about Seder this year. This is the things that I wish we would have, that I wish I would be part of this year at my Seder. And I think for someone having a solo Seder, the first point is really, I'm going to miss being around other people. And I think it's wrong not to acknowledge that is going to be hard. For those who are going to not be near their family members, their close friends, whoever they're used to celebrating Seder with, that's important to acknowledge as well. We all need to be able to say, this is the hard part about what our Seder is going to look like. And like I said, specifically for people who are on their own, for single mothers who either might be on their own or with their children running a Seder on their own for the first time, that's going to be hard. It's not what you're maybe used to doing. We have to acknowledge that it's hard, and that is okay. But then what we need to do is we actually have to look at the reality as well. And that's not saying that if you feel like it on the night and you end up having a scrambled egg Seder, there's anything wrong with that. I'm going to share a story with you at the end about somebody who really thought that their Seder was a disaster. But that's not what we're talking about at this point. But what we can do as well is we can say, actually, you know what? We have just over a week till Seder. This is the reality of my situation. If you're going to be on your own for Seder, that is the reality. Now, how am I going to best deal with that reality? We've had difficult challenges in our life. All of us have had. None of us have been spared from different difficult challenges. How are we going to face this difficult challenge? And what we can choose to do, which is our choice, is we can look at this as an opportunity. This could be something meaningful. How am I going to make this Seder, 2 nights of Seder, something special and something meaningful? If you're on your own for Seder, that means there's definitely going to be less focus on cooking, because it doesn't take that long to cook. We will talk about the cooking aspect, but it doesn't take that long to cook the meal if it's just 1 of you as opposed to, or 2 of you as opposed to many of you. So there's going to be less of a focus on that. But then perhaps there's more room to have time to focus on spirituality. And that's what the focus can be on things that are going to make our Seder more meaningful. There's a verse that we can think about, which is the idea of Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, which means Chadesh means new. This is a new experience that we're in. Chadesh Yameinu, renew our days, Kekedem, like in old. And what we need to do is we need to look at this new opportunity, the new experience that we're in, but also try to connect it to things from our past that we're proud of or that we'd like to connect to as well. Also to try to connect it to the idea of that maybe there's going to be some things that come out of this year's Seder that actually you quite enjoy and that you'd like to incorporate in future years. One thing is for sure, all of us are going to be talking about Seder 2020. That's for sure. This is going to be different than anything we've ever experienced. But it's important to have the attitude of let's see what we can make of this challenging situation. And like I said, if at the end of the day you just don't feel up to it, that's also an option. That's also something that you can feel like doing the bare minimum. But if there is a way to make it something special to you, let's think about some different ideas of what can make your Pesach so special for you. The first thing to think about is what is it about your Seder that has to be part of your Seder to make it special? What is it that makes you feel like it's Seder night? What are the things that you can't do without? So whether that's you love the parodies that you normally sing about Seder, the different funny songs, and you just can't not have those at your Seder, there's nothing wrong with singing them at the top of your lungs. On the other hand, if singing them makes you feel really sad, that's okay as well. You don't have to do that. Also, you can decide what do you want your Seder to be. We've got a week now to be able to plan for something that we know is going to be a challenging event. We know it's going to be difficult. And we've also got each other. There's a lot of people who are going to be on their own this year, so we can use each other as resources as well. What's your vision? What do you want to create? What are the essential pieces that are really important to you? One idea, if family is something that's really going to be, or close friends are something that's really going to be missing at your Seder, one beautiful idea is to get people to email you beforehand, and you could get different people to email you if you want a part. Someone can email you about Kadesh, someone can email you about Urchat, someone can email you about the Manishtana, someone can email you one of those ridiculous goofy songs with the lyrics. But the trick is, print out the email and don't read it. Put it in an envelope, each email in a different envelope, and only read it on Seder night. That way it will be some real connection for you to the people that you love, but to read it on Seder night. And if you want to send it to the people that you would normally spend Seder night with and ask them to share with you, that's a great thing to do. It's good to do it now because now's a week before. You've got the time to plan. You can be the person to do that for other people. If you know other people who are on their own, or people who will be with family, but you would normally be part of that, you can send them something for them to read at their Seder. The idea is print it off, put it in an envelope, print each one in a separate envelope, and that way it will help with pacing the Seder, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. So this idea of pacing yourself or adding spontaneity when you're on your own can be through other people, through things that they give to you. You might not be able to create their physical presence, but you can have a way of having their emotional presence as well. In terms of the afikomen, an idea that you could do is maybe have a riddle. Yes, hiding the afikomen for yourself may seem a little bit silly, but you could have a riddle that you and all your loved ones will be working out together about Seder night. One of the things that's really important, I think, is as well as planning the before your Seder and what actually happens during your Seder, is plan the after. Plan that after the 3 days of Yom Tov, you're going to be in touch with your loved ones. Make a set time when you're going to do Zoom or WhatsApp call or see each other and talk about what happened. And some of these ideas are things that you can all be doing in your own homes and then talk about it together so that you make this kind of community feel and a connection with the people that you would have liked to have been with during the Seder. So in terms of the Seder, like we said, you've got the before, the during and the after. Before Yom Tov, we're hopefully it looks like we're going to be running a before Zoom Seder experience, which will end with lighting candles, and then our computers and our phones and everything else will shut down, whether that's with our family, our community. It's going to be happening. So we're all looking to connect virtually beforehand. You can receive or give blessings before Yom Tov, right? If that would be something you would normally do at the Seder night, that can be something that you do in virtually beforehand. You can also arrange with your family to do something like at 10:30 you're all going to decide that you're all going to sing Dayenu together, and even though you're each going to be in your own different place, the people that you would normally be with your Seder night 4, this is part of your plan. We're all going to sing Dayenu all at the same time. There's no judgment in terms of the speed of your Seder. If you want to go through it really quickly, that's fine. If you feel like you just want to get it over and done with, that's okay. There is the main parts, besides drinking the wine, eating the matzah, the main part of Magid, which is the really long section, the main part is when we talk about the 3 things, the Pesach, the matzah and the maror from Rabbi Gamliel, that talks about those 3 things. So make sure that you say those parts properly. But if you want to race through it because you're not feeling it, or if you want to do it really slowly on the first night of Seder and really quickly on the second night of Seder, that's all okay. If you are in a situation where you are able to hear other people, now we had the most amazing thing, as I'm sure many of you did, when we all clapped for the NHS, that we were all able to stand outside and hear each other, even though we're far away from each other and we're all social distancing and we're all being sensible. If you live on a road where you're very close to people that you're friendly with, or people that you're connected with, that you would like to connect with, then what you can do is you can arrange with them beforehand. Let's all go outside and have a l'chaim together at a certain time. Or let's make a plan. I think Neil Samuel shared before a great book about different cocktails that you can make. Let's make a plan of how we're going to, from a social distance, just like we clapped for the NHS, let's do something special together on Seder night. We could all coordinate when we're going to open the door for Elijah. That can be something that we're all going to do together. So if you're in that situation, whether it's in a block of flats or whether you're in a close where you can all see and hear each other, that's a really nice way of connecting to people as well. I think it's really important to keep your Seder moving. It's important to have a pace at your Seder so that you feel like you're going from one part to another, you're not getting stuck, especially if you're on your own, that you've got a flow in terms of the Seder. If you want, you can move to different rooms. We've been talking about the idea of sitting on the couch for Seder this year. Why not? Who says the Seder you need to be stuck on an uncomfortable dining room chair? You're meant to be leaning, you're meant to be royalty. Take out your most beautiful pillows, make up your couch in the most amazing way, have a little table in front of it with your Seder plate and glass of wine, and then go to the table to eat for your main course. But for the most of the Seder, you can be relaxed on your couch. If you've got an easy boy, a lazy boy, and a lying back chair, even better. How wonderful to spend Seder like that. If you fall asleep, that might be a little bit more complicated. But you know, the idea is to make it something special for you. I don't know if you're anything like me. This is for the ladies out there. But if you have that dress that you once wore for a really special occasion, but you really haven't ever had an opportunity and you probably won't wear it ever again, why not wear it? Wear it to Seder night. Feel royal, feel regal. A crown on your head, even better, right? We're celebrating royalty. Make it feel something special for you. If you can make it the more tactile and the more visual you can make it for yourself. So whether that's putting your hand on your heart when there's parts that you really are feeling in the service, whether it's connecting with the moon and the idea of that we were given the moon and the time. Look at that moon. Look at the moon during Seder. Feel a connection with the world. Go out into your garden for a bit when it talks about Abraham seeing the stars. Go and connect with parts of creation as well. Make it, you don't have to be stuck in one place. This is your chance to make Seder the way you really want it to be. You might be one of those people that's always sat as a guest at someone else's Seder, and you've always thought to yourself, if ever I would do Seder, I would never do it like that. I would do it a different way. Well, this is your chance to do it the way you would really like to do Seder this year. If you're the sort of person that wants to have a very intellectual Seder, and you want to have, an argument when you're talking about the 5 rabbis that were sitting around the table and the argument that they were having, you can put out Haggadahs for the 5 rabbis and think about, what were they talking about till the sun rose? What was the conversation? If you're an intellect, want to talk about the Rambam and Rabbi Soloveitchik, if they were sitting at your Seder, and how would they be conversing with each other? If you love Broadway, if you love musicals, can I ask whoever's mic's on, can you turn it off if you don't mind? Unless you wanted to comment, sorry. If... Tanya. Okay. if you want to, oh, I don't know how to do this. Sorry, just 1 second. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that's better. If you want to, if you love Broadway and musicals, if you want to sing your whole Haggadah in every single song of all your favourite musicals and songs and everything that you love singing, do it. This is your year to do it, right? Please God, you're never going to be on your own for Seder again. We really pray that we'll never be in this challenging, difficult situation again. But if we are already in this situation, oh, sorry, I'm just trying to mute all. Yeah. Okay. If we are already in this situation, then there might be actually something positive about it, that we can do the Seder the way that we want, whether it's, like I said, opera, Broadway, or having an intellectual conversation. One of the things that's really important is the Haggadah that you use. And I would say if you have the opportunity, I put a link below from Divrei Kodesh, but there's all different things. If you have the opportunity, get yourself a new Haggadah this year, or get yourself the special one that you love using. Now, this Haggadah that you all know, we don't actually use this for our children. I love this Haggadah because I grew up with this. My children think it's old-fashioned and weird, but to me, this is the way that you do Seder night. I love using this Haggadah, and it has that lovely song about the 5 of Rabbi Eliezer. It's got the words to it as well. If that's what you love using, use that. There's some other different examples. You've got the Rabbi Frand has one. This is a great resource as well, the survival kit. It's not a Haggadah, but it's a survival kit. We've got this Haggadah is very meaningful to me. It was presented to me by my primary school. So this is a special in memory of somebody that we loved. So this is a very special Haggadah that I won as a prize when I was younger. I still have one of the Haggadahs that I made when I was in primary school that I love to use. It doesn't matter what the Haggadah is. There is one that I would really recommend that I didn't have a copy to show you, but it's called the Cat Haggadah. And it's got the most unbelievable pictures. It's very, very graphic. So when you're looking at it, it really makes Mitzrayim come alive. It shows you the cruelty and the challenge and all the things that the people were going through there. So that I would really recommend for you. The other one that I loved is there's something called Touched by the Seder, which is an author that I like that has beautiful stories. I love the stories that he shares. I did put in the comments the link to Divrei Kodesh, they are doing deliveries. So if you know that already ahead of time your Seder is going to be challenging, why not treat yourself to something special this year? The other thing that I couldn't find actually, but one year we found an amazing book that talks about the experience of leaving Egypt in such a graphic way that I really, when I was reading it, I felt as if I was there. And one of the suggestions that this talk that I was listening to by Mark Fine and Dusty Fruchter, one of the suggestions that they came up with was the idea of deciding with some friends or family members that you're all going to read a certain book over the 3-day Yom Tov. And then make a time, again, like we said, that after's just as important. Make that time where you're all going to discuss what you read together afterwards. Because it is, 72 hours is a long time. But actually, it's all to do with our mindset, isn't it? Maybe we could reframe it as we're now going to do a 72-hour retreat. Doesn't that sound wonderful? A mindfulness and meditation retreat that involves eating copious amounts of matzah and drinking lots of wine. But it is a lot of it's to do with our mindset. But reading a book together sounded to me like a really lovely idea. Again, it's important to realise it's not ideal. This is not ideal, but it's got the potential to be profound, the potential to be a very spiritual experience. What's interesting is if we think in terms of the Manish Tana, it does actually talk about in the Manish Tana, the rabbis already ask, if you don't have anyone to ask, do you still need to tell over the story of Seder night? And they say that yes, you do. So even if you're not asking the questions to anyone, even if you're asking them to yourself, you still say Manish Tana. Why would this be? Who are we talking to? Maybe we're talking to ourselves. How am I different this year than I was last year? How am I going to respond to these questions differently this year than I was last year? Maybe I'm talking to myself when I was at my bat mitzvah. Maybe I'm wondering, what would my parents say to me if they were here now? Or my children say to me if they were with me? Or my grandchildren say to me if they were with me? That's part of what I'm thinking about as well. That idea of planning ahead is so wonderful, but with flexibility. Put in when you're going to have your meal times, when you're going to daven, when you're going to pray. There's so much to pray for at the moment. Pray for yourself. Pray for the challenge of the situation that you're in. That's a good thing to pray for too. Exercise time, all the things that we're going to pray for. Another lovely idea for before Yom Tov, and Neil's shared some great ideas with us today about cooking, is the idea of cooking on Zoom with your loved ones before Yom Tov. Yes, you can't be with them at the meal, but maybe you can prepare things together. If there are certain things that you wouldn't be Seder night without the knedlach that your bubby made, so make those knedlach, or the gefilte fish that, you know, your great-grandmother used to make, or the bubbalach that you used to have. Make those if it makes you feel happy. And if you can do it on Zoom with your loved ones, even better. That's really special as well. Like I said, as many Haggadahs as you can. No, I think the idea of not having any Haggadah loyalty is a really good thing to do. Give yourselves the permission to experiment. You're not going to know what works till it tries. And you know what? If till you try, if it didn't work on the first night, do it completely different on the second night. If you loved the first night, well, do that again. And it's also really okay to say that you're really missing your loved ones. An exercise, if you're into this kind of things, that you can do is the idea of pretending that your loved ones are around the table and saying to them what you would if they were there. Now, maybe there's some things that you wish you could tell them and you can't really in real person. That's okay. You can tell it to them now. They're not really there. This is your opportunity to tell them how you feel. Maybe it's somebody who's passed on who you're not with anymore. That's okay. You can talk to them as well. There's no right or wrong. It's all okay. The interesting thing about the Seder is it's this timeless container that is all about learning about leaving Egypt. And if we think about the first year when they left Egypt, we learn that in the plague of darkness, 4/5 of the Jewish people died, which means there were a lot of people on their own. If it's of any comfort to know that you're not the first people in history, you're not the first person in history to make a Seder on your own, as hard as it is. And to know that even on the year that they left Egypt, there were people who made Seders on their own. And probably when it spoke about the tears of the Jewish people, it was their tears that were mixed in with the salt water. And if that happens this year as well, that's okay as well. Again, the follow-up afterwards, make sure you have someone to speak to about it afterwards, is so important as well. I'm running a little bit over, but I'm going to end in a few minutes. But one of the ideas that was shared is the idea that the Torah was actually given to us, not in Israel as we might have expected, but in the desert, to show us that Judaism is something that we can connect to and is accessible to us from everywhere, whether we're with other people, whether we're not. Like we said at the beginning, it's about our personal relationship. There was a beautiful story that's been sent through a few groups, and that I wanted to share with you. Actually, that it's a message from Rabbi Pinny Dunner, who was a rabbi here in the UK, and I believe he's now in California. I might be wrong, but I think that's where he's a rabbi now. And he speaks about that he had a conversation once with Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, who is a prolific speaker. He spoke at our recent Aleinu conference, rabbinic conference. Unbelievable, inspirational speaker. And he's got some incredible videos and amazing stuff that I've been listening to and that's accessible for all of us. And he spoke to him. Rabbi Jacobson is Chabad, he's Lubavitch, and Rabbi Dunner spoke to him and he asked him about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but he was asking him specifically about the private life of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Now, anyone who knows about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he had thousands and thousands and thousands of students, so you would think he didn't have much of a private life. But actually what was quite interesting about the Rebbe was that his Shabbat meals were always only him and his wife. He never had guests, he never had his students. He always had a very, very small, quiet, intimate Shabbat meal. And actually they never were blessed with any children, so it really was just the two of them. And Rabbi Jacobson spoke about the idea. He was a teenager living in Crown Heights, which was near where the Rebbe lived, in yeshiva, the year when the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife passed away. And that year, a lot of people were not sure what to do, or tried to invite the Lubavitcher Rebbe over, or tried to see if they could connect with him and he would join them, or they would stay with him. And the people who were in charge of looking after him, this was in 1988, the people in charge of looking after him, the people who wanted to connect with him, they all wanted to know, would the Rebbe like to come to them? Could they be with the Rebbe? And he said no. And he went home and he had his Seder on his own. And then he got to the part of the Seder, which was when you Shafoch HaMascha, when you open up the door and we welcome Elijah into our homes. And he got to that part and he opened up the door. And the students still, said, Rebbe, do you want us to join you? Shall we come in? And he said, no, go home, go to your families. This is my Seder. Rabbi Zuna reflected on the fact that he had 18 months ago, a woman had called him up that she had gone through a very, very messy, difficult divorce, and her children were meant to be with her on Pesach, and she'd spent weeks and weeks preparing, and she was so excited to have this special time with them. And then a few hours before Seder night, for whatever reason, she received the news that her kids weren't coming. She was going to be on her own for Seder. And she told all her neighbours how excited she'd made this. This was so happy for her. And suddenly she was faced with such a challenging, horrible situation. And she said to Rabbi Zuna, she said, I had the worst Seder ever. She said, I cried my whole way through it. I rushed through it. I didn't even get dressed. It was an awful, awful Seder. And Rabbi Zuna said that knowing about the Lubavitcher Rebbe having a Seder all on his own, he was able to say to this woman, it's okay. If it was good enough for the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it's good enough for you. You did Seder. Maybe it wasn't your most joyous Seder. It was a very challenging Seder. And Rabbi Zuna was saying that's what this year is going to look like for so many of us. Right? So many people are not going to have this amazing, inspiring, wonderful, fun Seder that they thought of. Yes, we've shared some ideas, and there's some more in the comments about ways to make the Seder something special. But, at the end of the day, this is going to be a really hard Seder. And if it's good enough for the Lubavitcher Rebbe to have a Seder on his own, it's good enough for us. We're going to do our best. And that's what each person needs to really think. They're going to do their best. Yes, if you can, if you're feeling up to it, spend this week trying to make it something special. Treat yourself. Get your favourite foods in. If you've got an ability to do the delivery, or find someone who can help. Whatever you can do to make this a special Seder for you. But also realise that it's okay. This year is going to be difficult. And this is the year that we're all going to be speaking about afterwards. This was the year when. This was the challenging year when. So I wish you all a very Chag Kasher V'Sameach, a very special Pesach. Know that we're here for you if you want to reach out either before the 72-hour meditation retreat or afterwards. We're here to speak to you. Reach out to your family and friends. Whatever preparation you're feeling up to doing beforehand, please make it something really special for you. Reach out afterwards. Share ideas with each other. Be there for each other. We'll try to be there for you as well. And please God, really, when we say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim next year, we should all be together in Jerusalem. I can't wait for the biggest Seder in the world where all the Jewish people come together. No one will be on their own anymore. And please God, that should happen speedily in our days. I'm going to now turn off Facebook, unless there was anyone who commented. I don't think so. I'm going to turn off Facebook now. If you have any questions, please message me.